What's good, man? It's your boy. I'm back on this channel, and as you can tell by the title, I'm sure we're looking at what holds back players, what prevents players, and this is talking about all players. This is talking about myself more, but I can see this be reflected with all players really. And what I kind of want to explore in this video is the idea of ego and just general. We're gonna look at the ego first itself and just explore that a little bit. And then I'm going to talk about more ways to kind of hex the ego, to prevent the ego from, But then again, so at core, we have to understand what the ego is. Now, for a lot of people, they'll think ego is confidence. This is something that's quite common. That's a common interpretation for how most people see ego. But I'm talking about ego in the sense of identity. Okay, identity in the sense, and in the football sense, it's the identity in which before the game, during the game, and after the game, where your headspace is at, your core headspace. I would say that is what ego really is, and it's not about the confidence, because you can have the confidence and you can say that you're a great player, blah blah blah, but that doesn't stop you from having a bad game. And we see that across all spheres of all football leagues. Okay, it doesn't have the influence that people think it does. All it does is when you do have a good game, the ego gets bolstered. That's about it. But when you have a bad game, that bad game turns into a worse game, and you're not able to pick up the lessons. That's another thing that ego prevents. It prevents you from picking up the lessons in the game that you're playing, or just in general, just pick up lessons from anyone, because you're too disturbed in your own head, and And again, the reason why I talk about this is because this is something that I experienced on myself, and I want to kind of talk about my story a little bit. So cool. Obviously, as you guys, I've talked about in different videos before. It's a bit windy today, but I've spoken about different videos before about my own footballing journey, how I started off playing right back, and then I would talk to you during that time. During that time, I had a lot of identity. Okay, I was a naughty kid, and I was good at being naughty. So then, just generally in school, I was running off that high, of just being this, the ego was there in that sense. That was the identity, being this baddie. That was the identity. Cool. Now in football, it was less. I still had passion for the game. I still enjoyed the game, but it was less from I'm gonna try to improve myself, and more, I'm gonna show that I'm the biggest, baddest guy on the pitch every game. That was what I was going to get. That was the identity before, during, and after the games. It was week after week after week, me just trying to prove a battle to everyone that everyone was believing pretty much, because I would never really get bodied. I would never lose to other people, because there was so much ego with that. There was so much, identity with that. But that makes you stuck. It makes you stuck. Because when you have that sort of drive for the ego, when you put in all your cards and points into the ego, there's no space for improvement, only to maintain the face that you're trying to maintain, So let's say that you're just a relatively good dribbler, like me, I was a good dribbler, My ceiling was the dribbling, because I would just, it was every single game, I would dribble through the whole team once, and then at the end, I'll be out of breath, and I didn't score. Nothing really came of it. But that ego of doing that held face for years, And obviously, in the last couple months, I was talking about football changed for me, because my life was changing at that point. When I quit my job and I focused on football a bit more, it was, I wouldn't say it was overnight, but it was definitely, once I started practicing shooting, because I used to hate training and shit like that. But when I started practicing shooting, my game changed. But in the sense, I want to talk about yesterday, okay? Now, yesterday, I played a game. I played very well. I scored 3 goals, got 3 assists. It's between my friends, though. That was the thing. It was between my friends. And cool. Now, I've gone into that game pretty light, because, again, my attachment with trying to... The ego side of my football is reduced significantly, especially in this last couple of weeks, because again, this is something I'm going to talk about later on in the video, in terms of practices in which I've practiced to kind of reduce my ego. But again, I don't want to use the word ego to reduce my identity, the practice I've done to reduce my identity. But in the sense that I had a game yesterday, and cool, I'm playing in that game, I'm doing well, but I still see the identity there. You know, I still see the parts of my game in which I'm clinging on to a face that I'm trying to hold up, a new face now, and this face is now that I'm trying to prove everyone wrong there. Because these are the same, some of these men were the man that they used to say that I was the worst footballer. They used to say that I was the worst footballer in the friendship group. Like, they used to actually, and like, that used to just fuck with me, like, proper. So like, but then now, every time I play with them, I'm putting 5 goals, 6 goals in, you know. But I can still feel that resistance in the sense that nobody congratulates me. Nobody really recognizes my ability. It's just like, I will just score, I don't celebrate, and then it's just like, you know, and I can feel the tension there, and that makes me uncomfortable. But again, that's identity. That's what we're talking about here, and that's what's gonna hold me back, you know. That's what, and then again, that's what holds me back, because again, I'm challenging all of these points to playing well in them games, but when I go play in the men's games where there's not really that much expectation on me, obviously circumstances are different pitch, blah blah blah, different players, blah blah blah. But there's one player that I play with with my friends as well. We have the maddest chemistry. Like, it's just so special. But at the same time, it's about understanding that it's the identity that's holding me back. You know, because again, I put all of my points into this game that I play with my friends. You know, so, like, a lot of these, and it's not like these guys are bad players. Like, a couple of them used to play academy, and then a lot of them just play school level, high level. Like, in high level in terms of our age, they're one of that, like, I would say top 10%. A lot of them are top 10%, top 20% in my town. Yeah, like, that's what we talk about, top 30%, especially for our age group. But the point that I'm trying to make is that the identity in which I go into those games, I'm thinking, again, is the good thing, because I'm getting the goals, I'm getting the assists. But after I remember I had to pray last night, because I was just like, raw, like, I can feel the ego working within me, in which I'm feeling like it's me. Because again, this is something I want to talk about as well. And again, I have other channels that look into this more, but I'm never gonna disregard this fact, this truth. Okay, it is God running the show. Okay, we think it's us that's doing this shit. We think it's us that's that's doing the, you know, you think it, but it's God running through us, you know. And I can feel it in the way in which my football has progressed over the years, over this year, in the way that over time I've less and less and less identified with exactly what I want to do in the pitch, and then not entering this flow state. Because I would say last game, at parts of that game, I was in flow state, but you have to understand what flow state is. Okay, flow state is the sense in which there's little to no brain operating at that moment. Okay, and you have to understand what that means. Instinct, you know. And I would say, and again, might be the part of the video where I'm talking about more what helps me feeding to that instinct. Obviously, the game situation itself definitely helps, because everyone on that pitch, whether they want to admit it or not, know my ability, and I know my ability, so that bolsters me again to be more confident to do that. Okay, when I play with the men's, that is not really there, because they don't really know much about me. Like, obviously my friends know about me. I have 2 friends that I play with. I have another friend that should be playing with us as well. That's going to be really good, because he's really good. He played with us today as well. But, I mean, yesterday. But, what was I saying? I forgot, man. Fuck. I always do this, bro. I always forget. But, fuck, man. That's annoying. That's annoying. But, let me just talk about something then. Football. Okay. So yeah, oh yeah, I remember. So I was having identity in the moment already, with the sense of that, which again helped me positively, because again, you always have to have some sort of identity. That's another thing. I'm not saying completely disregard the ego, okay? But you have to understand it's about balance, okay? It's about balance. You should have a sureness in your confidence in your ability, but I should say that you put that down to God. You channel the ego side of you. You channel the ego side of you, and you turn it into kind of gratefulness. And I'm saying this doesn't happen overnight, okay? But I would say for me, the best way to do this is to recognize God more in our lives, because the way that our ego grows And again, when I say recognize God more in your life, I don't mean in the way in which you're doing it in a forcey way. Because again, if you don't feel comfortable or ready to do that, that's also fine. I would just say recognize the message that I'm trying to display here and just be more aware of your ego first if you're not ready to kind of accept the gracefulness of God into your life. Because again, I've been there myself. Like, I would say last year, when I first started my journey on just kind of deconstructing myself, blah, blah, blah. Again, you can kind of look at the other channels where I talk about that more. I was at the beginning of my journey, definitely, I couldn't even, the word God couldn't even come to my mind, like, because I was so separate from God. But I knew I had to destroy my ego. I had to destroy the sense of identity. But a lot of it was me putting it down to myself rather than God. And that kind of hindered my growth in certain spaces, you know? And I can kind of see how now there's a shift. There's a shift in which the focus is coming back towards God and less away and less from myself, you know. And one way that I'm doing this now, and just this week, I've seen immediate differences this week by in the way at which I start and end my days, you know. And today and in the last couple of days, the way I've been starting my day was how I just, first of all, I read the Bible, you know. And again, it doesn't matter, it can be the Quran, whatever religious script, okay, because I'm a believer in which I think you come into this form and you have one religion which you, or whatever, there's one guide, you know. There's one guide that is set onto you, whether that's your parents or whatever. Sometimes you don't have a guide, and then you go out and you find that guide. You find the guide for you, the guide that points towards God in a way that makes sense the most for you, whether that's Muhammad, Buddha, whatever. It's cool. It's all cool. It's all welcome here. Well, trust me. And then once you do that, I would say if there's a book in which you can read that they might have written, or there's a book that which is like, you know, a holy scripture, or any book that is kind of pointing towards this whole is not written in a way in which it's just written so then it's God, yeah. If you can read that, you know, in the morning first thing you do, you sit with yourself and pray or introspect in whatever way is comfortable for you, but sit there with yourself, you know. That's the first step, whatever way is comfortable for you at this moment. Again, I have other channels where I talk about this more. You man know what they are, but you just sit with yourself first and be able to be comfortable with yourself. That's the first step, I would say. And again, it's just like, everyone's at their own stages, but this is how it worked for me. So if you have a different way, maybe you like walking, whatever it is, that's cool. But I'm just showing you how I start my mornings. So I sit there and I chill and I pray. I'm grateful. And then I look at myself, I look at what I done yesterday, I think about what I want to do today, and I kind of play with that. Cool. I go through that now, and I'm sat there. I usually just lying down in my bed, all right. And then after that, what I would do is I'll go pick up the Bible. I'll go read the Bible, and then I'll read that for a bit. I kind of prefer to read the Gospels, but again, each their own. I'm looking more into Jesus's life mostly when I read the Bible at the moment. This could change, but that's what's happening at the moment. And then after that, I'll go read another book that I'm reading, Autobiography of a Yogi, which is kind of looking from the other side but it still talks about Jesus, but it's talking about more of a hybrid relationship between all religions, which is something that I kind of talk about here. It's a very good book. Anyone that resonates with you in this whole sense that you also believe that all religions are pointing towards the same creator. If you truly believe that, I think the Autobiography of a Yogi and the Spiritual Resonance channel is something that will work well for you in pointing that towards you, okay? All my other channels as well, but less to that. And then and then I will go out and I will try walk. Or for example, today I've gone out and I try and make the video. This when I tell you, I can feel the difference that just that made, in the sense that the first thing I'm doing isn't pulling towards. Obviously, I'm recording from the screen now, but I'm looking at myself but. Because my mornings is not starting with pulling myself into a screen, pulling myself into stimulation, even into food, like, oh, I'm hungry, like, because I'm going to eat after I make this video, like, that's what I'm saying. Because I'm not being pulled into doing other things, the first thing I'm doing is being grateful to understand that I'm not this identity. I'm respecting that through the practices that I do in the morning. It's already changed how I played yesterday. It's already changed how I've talked to my friends. Obviously in the subtle ways, you know. And again, I'm riding on a good wave of Like, this is something new, this is something different. But over time, the challenges will come because, again, the ego will think, oh, let me go on my phone today. Oh, I'm really hungry this morning, you know? And that's where the discipline comes in, you know? Because not every day is going to feel like how it feels like for me right now in the first couple of days. I understand that through plenty of shit that I've tried and done, you know? But all I would say is just the first step is always to sit there with yourself. You sit there with yourself and you kind of just think, okay, God, how is it that you want me to do this? How is it that you want me to develop as a footballer? Show me, you know? And over time, the more you ask these questions, and you have to do it in a way in which you're not, and I would always advise to do this alone, like just always be alone. No nothing, no music, nothing. You're just there, sitting there, and you have that dialogue with God. And you can talk about football in there. You can talk about whatever it is, life, whatever it is, you know? And I promise you, if you can do that, even in the slightest ways, like the slightest ways, over time, you will see more benefit, especially on the football pitch. Because again, this is for me, with the team that I'm playing at right now, I can see that there's a lack of grounded players in the team, you know? I can see that there's even though they're a lot older than me, they're not grounded in the same way in which I would feel I'm grounded. And again, a bit of identity because I'm comparing, but it's just an observation that I'm making. I can see in the which that they argue with the other players and they don't necessarily see how that influences the whole team, because now they're going to try to attack us, the younger players. Like, you know, these are just the things that do pop up in these games, you know? And you see a lot of that. You see it on the TV, like, you see how players dive. Like, you see ego probably at the worst in professional football, okay? Because, again, you have to also... But this is another thing you have to remember. The pride comes before the fall, okay? And you can have a glamorous career. You can have the most glamorous career, okay? But if your ego is not in check, once football's gone, what are you? You know, because this is the reality for a lot of players. And they will have the millions, they will have everything. This is the thing in this whole life. You have to understand what I'm saying here, okay? Because I don't know exactly who I'm reaching out to, so this is what I'm trying to package it for you. But you have to understand, and no matter what, and football is just the way that in which we're displaying it on this channel, but no matter what channel of life it is, if you're not understanding and building a relationship, and I'm not saying diminish the ego, but if you're not understanding and building a relationship in which you're allowing God to flow through your identity, flow through yourself, instead of you trying to create this buffer and this bubble of yourself where you're saying it's me, it's only me, it's me, I'm the only one that can do it, you know? And then the only one that can beat me is me. That's what Amine said, and that's what I want to talk about. But let me just remember exactly what I was speaking about so I can continue speaking about. I was talking about if you're not in check with your ego. Okay, we're going to talk about Amine. Okay, this is from a TV show, you know? And again, we're going to talk about TV shows after this as well. I'm going to package this really quickly, 24, 25-minute mark, we'll close it off, okay? But we have Amine, okay? This guy, you know, in the show, we can see how he, at the beginning, we see a flashback. I'm in season 2, so we see a flashback. We see how he's putting in the graft. He's putting in the work to become a better basketballer. He meets Tetsu. He becomes an even better basketballer on a whole different level, okay, because he met Tetsu. But then he started looking to other people's approval as a measure for his own ability because of the ego. You know, he's seeing that the players don't want to try against him anymore because he's gotten too good. So he develops this whole buffer of the ego. He says the only one that can beat me is me. And that's his ceiling. He's stuck at this. He's still as good as he is good. You know, that's still there. But he's at a ceiling. You know, he's at the ceiling where the only one can beat him is him. And this is necessarily true until he meets Kagami. You know? And Kagami, the only reason why Kagami was able to be as close as him is because of Kagami was pissed off because Amine just thought that this guy was so good. But then at the same time, the difference with Kagami is that the one thing that's pissing off Kagami the most is that he can't help his teammates, even though he knows he has the potential in him to help him. He knows that there's something limiting him, the ego, the identity. He can feel that. He calls out. You can see, even though they don't necessarily paint, in the moment that I'm talking about in the episode where he enters the zone, because Amine has already entered the zone before that. But before Kagami enters the zone, you can see the surrender. He says, he's literally got this tears in his eyes and he's saying, I don't want to watch my friends cry anymore. I want to help them. And that's a call out to God, and God puts him in the zone. God gives him what he's looking for. And that's what separates Amine and Kagami. They both have the raw ability, don't get me wrong. But Amine was caught up in the ego, in the sense in which for a long time, and he just kind of like, he was just looking for the opening, you know. And Kagami is what provided that opening, because Kagami's forcing the door open through surrender. He forces the door open through surrender, you know. Because we see at the beginning of the show, Kagami has a lot of ego there, because he doesn't think Tetsu's good, blah blah blah. But he surrenders very quick to Tetsu, very quickly, and he surrenders too much to Tetsu, you know. And then we see Kagami begin to surrender to himself. He starts to focus that inward. What that he used to put into Tetsu, he's now putting it on himself. He's saying, how can I not help them? How can I not do that? And he enters his own. I haven't finished the second part of the episode. That's exactly where I'm at. But again, don't misinterpret these shows as well, because people look at Amine. I look at Amine, I'm like, this guy's really good. Like, this guy's really good. But you also have to recognize how it's the ego that holds him back. On the subtle levels, this is what puts these shows like Kuroko Basketball, these other shows on the highest level. The highest shows, especially the sports shows, are the ones that are able to display even, it's all anime really. Anime really, like, I know it's a specific Dragon Ball Z type of anime, but they really do display, I might say Dragon Ball, I don't know the name of it, but you know what I mean if you know anime, like them sort of animes, there's a name for them. That for boys, teenagers or whatever. But those sort of animes really do help kind of, if you look at it from that perspective, they really do display how high-powered individuals are being held back by their ego, you know. But the same thing applies to you, because you have to remember that you're also a high-power individual as well. You have the exact same potential that Amine and all these players have. It's the truth. It's the truth, okay? That's just how it is. In retrospect to a modern world, I'm not saying that you'll be able to fly and then electricity will start buzzing from your eye, or you'll be able to do the vanishing drive. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you have the potential to have that sort of dominant force on the pitch. That's within all of us. In whatever sport, whatever form, you are able to be this dominant force that can't be withered, okay? But it's only possible through surrender. It's only to be able to maintain that game through game. You can and reach, let's say, the Messi, because Messi is the one player in which we see that, you know. But I feel like Messi is an epiphany of surrender, you know. You can tell that Messi surrenders to his ability. You can tell there's no thoughts there. He just trains and horns his sword day after day after day off the pitch, goes on the pitch and does his thing, you know. There's less, and in the post-match interviews, you can see there's not really identity there. From his youngest interviews, you can see there's no identity there. It's just pure self-introspection. It's him saying exactly what he might have not done well in the game, what he's looking to improve on his game. Because you have to understand, Messi came into the game fucking like, bro, my man was at 5'8". He had to take growth hormones, shit like this, bro. We have to learn from these great players. And then we can look at Neymar, someone that got lost in their ego. Or for example, Suarez. Suarez is a player that played very well at Liverpool, but he got lost in his ego. He felt lost. Liverpool didn't really embrace him well because he was kind of a ball hog, you know what I mean? He meets Messi, everything changes. He surrenders. And he realizes, okay, my ability is meant for more. I'm not just a goal scorer. I can create these goals for them as well, you know? And he used to have that same relationship with Sturridge, you know? To be fair, he used to have that relationship with Sturridge as well. But cool, let me wrap this up. If you want, I can kind of go into, because I want to make this a bigger topic on this channel. Because again, I was kind of thinking, well, I don't want to just, there's something, I feel like there's something more for this channel, you know. And I feel like focusing on the ego side of football is going to be a good part of this channel that I really want to bring to you guys, you know. So, but just to wrap this up, I just want to kind of just touch on the fact, just remember, you know, the ego is the identity in which you hold to things. It's the identity that you're projecting onto things, you know. I have to be this footballer. I have to do this. I have to do that, you know. That's the identity side, okay? And we have to have that side, you know. But if the relationship with God is not there, the surrender to something greater than yourself, forget about the word God. It's the surrender to something greater than yourself, to accept the fact that not everything will go your way, but you still stand alone, happiness or not, surrendering to that greater power. If you can do that, I promise you, you'll become the footballer exactly you want to be, because God, or whatever you want to call it, will point exactly where you need to be, what you need to do, if you create the space in your life, you know, and you get rid of social media, shit like that. I'll talk about more in another video, but thank you. Peace.